Pocono International Raceway. It's a strange creature, 3 turns instead of 4. But behind me, 40 of NASCAR Winston Cup's finest drivers are ready to try to tame her today in the Miller High Life 500, including Tim Richmond, making his return appearance on the circuit after a lengthy illness that's had him sidelined since 1986. Richmond's won the last 2 races here, hopes to keep that streak going today at Pocono. He's starting 3rd. Up in the front row, well, there's another familiar car. It's the Budweiser number 11, driven by Terry Labonte and prepared by Junior Johnson. For Johnson, it's the 200th time in Winston Cup history that one of his cars has started in the front row. Labonte's looking for his first win this year. Along with these other 39 drivers, they're going to try to do it today at Pocono. Sit back and enjoy it. It should be interesting.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Let's take a look at the starting lineup for today's Miller High Life 500. On the pole, Terry Labonte in the Junior Johnson Chevrolet, 155.502 miles an hour. And alongside Terry on row number 1, Benny Parsons. Nice hat, Benny. The Folgers Coffee Chevrolet, 155.438.
Row 2, making his comeback, 32 years of age, won both events last year, Tim Richmond in the Folgers Coffee Exxon Chevrolet. Richmond will start 3rd. Along him, awesome Bill Elliott. Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia, 31 years of age, 154.865 miles per hour.
Yet another car from the Hendrick Motorsports stables. Jeff Bodine starts 5th in the Levi Garrett Chevrolet, 154.520 miles an hour. And a man who is looking for a victory here in 1987, Harry Gant. He has run well here at Pocono in the past, starting in car 33.
Dale Earnhardt will start back in 7th spot, 6 wins in the first 8 events of the year. He's had 2 major wrecks here at Pocono, looking for his first win. Starting in 8th spot will be Cale Yarborough, a Timminsville, South Carolina driver, former winner here. He's 47 years of age.
The Exxon Tide Chevrolet, Darrell Waltrip from Franklin, Tennessee. He starts in row number 5 with a qualifying speed of 153.770, and Rookie of the Year, victor of a season ago, Alan Kulwicki in the Ford Thunderbird, a fine qualifying run at better than 153 miles an hour. As the field begins to roll, the remainder of the starting lineup, Kyle Petty and Morgan Shepherd on row number 6, Neil Bonnet and Greg Sachs in row 7.
Starting back in the field in row 80 will be Buddy Baker. Bobby Allison, the 3-time winner here at Pocono. Row 9 has Rusty Wallace and Richard Petty, who will get subbed by Joe Ruttman.
Row number 10, Sterling Marlin alongside Phil Parsons. And the 11th row, Ken Schrader and Michael Waltrip.
Back in row 12, Ricky Rudd starting back in the pack, and rookie Dale Jarrett. Row 13, another rookie, Brett Bodine and Davey Allison, all rookie, row 13.
Row 14, Dave Marcus and Bobby Hillen Jr. in the Miller American Buick. Canadian Trevor Boys and Dirt Star Rodney Combs in row 15.
Row 16, Jim Bound, all the way from the West Coast in the Roger Hamby car, along with West Coaster Derek Cope. Row 17, Buddy Arrington and dirt track ace Jimmy Horton.
Former ARCA driver Steve Christman with truck racer Charlie Rudolph. The 19th row, Jimmy Means and Bobby Walwack.
Back in row 20, Bobby Gerhardt and veteran J.D. McDuffie.
The field running on their pace lap here at the Pocono International Raceway. In just a moment, we'll be seeing Richard Petty, who has started the car, the STP Pontiac, bring that machine down pit road. They'll begin effecting the driver change. This is a most unique racetrack, as we've already documented for you. It is triangular in shape, so you'll be hearing Jerry and I refer today to the fact that there are just 3 turns. Turn number 1, 675 feet in radius with 14 degrees of banking. The turn you're looking at right now is turn number 3. It is totally flat, or 6 degrees of banking if you want to get technical, as the Oldsmobile pace car brings the field down. And there to the right of the screen, Richard Petty taking the STP Pontiac down pit road. He will be leaving the car. Joe Ruttman will be climbing on board. It's a beautiful day, a good-looking field of race cars here in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania.
And we'll remind you again, Richard Petty broke 2 ribs a couple of weeks ago up at Dover, Delaware. The 7th and 8th ribs on the right side. Also injured his knee, has a big sore on the knee there. He cannot stand the 200-lap beating at Pocono. He will climb out and Ruttman will get aboard.
Stay tuned. The Miller High Life 500 comes your way next. with Jerry Punch and Jerry Gappens on pit road. I'm Eli Gold. That's how the field stacks up. Should mention that just as we get set to start here, this is the second race of the weekend here at Pocono. Yesterday afternoon in the ARCA Permatech Supercar Series, the Champion Sparkplug 100 won by Bob Shack from Lombard, Illinois in a good race. Let's see how the Winston Cuppers do. Bobby Gerhardt all the way to the back of the field, moves to the inside as the field gets the green from Harold Kinder, and Terry Labonte in the Budweiser Chevrolet leads that land rush into turn number 1. 14 degrees of banking. You see that long, wide straightaway. Darrell Waltrip in the 17 car. Bobby Allison in the 22 taking the outside line as the field now strings onto the Long Pond straightaway. That's a straightaway between turns 1 and 2, named after the town in which this racetrack sits, Long Pond, Pennsylvania.
There's Terry Labonte, a new track and event qualifying record over 155.5 miles per hour. He will lead the charge. Then a pair of Folgers cars. No, you're not seeing double. That's Benny Parsons and Tim Richmond in second and third as they battle back in the pack. And back behind them in fourth place will be showing the Bill Elliott car.
Now into turn number 3. That's that flat turn where the RPMs go way down, kind of like a road course, and onto the front straightaway. This is the longest single straightaway on any track on the Winston Cup Tour. 3,740 feet of racing, 6 lanes wide, and I'm sure if today's race is like any other, we'll see them use all of those lanes as the afternoon unfolds. This is turn number 1, the most steeply banked of the 3 turns here, 14 degrees, but you see the groove is on the inside, the apron almost of this racetrack. And again, that straightaway between turns 1 and 2, the Long Pond straight, some 3,055 feet. That straightaway in its own right, Jerry, is like the back stretch at Daytona or Talladega.
It's about a half a mile long, and it leads up to that very, very difficult tunnel turn. What some drivers, Neil Bonnet in particular, says must probably be the most difficult turn to negotiate on the Winston Cup Tour. They head out of turn 2, come up the short chute by the camper parking area. Beautiful sight for the campers there to view the race over out of turn 2, and out of turn 3 onto the long 7/10 of a mile straightaway.
If you've never been here to the Poconos, as we look at Dale Earnhardt, turn 2 is also known as the tunnel turn because the racetrack goes over the tunnel that the spectators use to gain entrance and exit to and from the infield area. So that basically sets the ground rules as to what we'll be talking about throughout this afternoon's coverage. Tim Richmond, Benny Parsons, Bill Elliott, that is second, third, and fourth place right now behind the race leader, Terry Labonte. And as we mentioned in the opening of the show, Terry has not been on the pole all that often here. Certainly this in his first year with Junior Johnson, but when he is on the pole, he wins. That's a darn good track record to have to hang on to.
Well, Junior Johnson's cars have never won the Miller High Life 500. They've won twice here at Pocono, both wins coming later on in the Summer 500. Darrell Waltrip won for Junior back in 1981, and Cale Yarborough in 1979 got the first win for Junior Johnson here at Pocono.
You see, already we're starting to see Terry Labonte and all the other cars zigging and zagging here on this wide front straightaway. Neil Bonnet popularized that move a few years ago to break the draft on the cars behind you. Here comes Tim Richmond. He moves to the inside of Terry Labonte, making the pass into turn number 1. We have a new leader here in the Poconos. Richmond takes the lead over Terry Labonte. And again, let's establish what we saw there on the front straightaway. When the cars come off turn 3, and with such a wide racetrack, if you move way to the inside, that will hopefully disturb the air so the cars behind you just can't hook onto your draft.
Well, don't be surprised if you see the cars scattered 5, 6, even 7 wide across that 100-foot wide front stretch. Over 175 miles an hour. There's a view of that front straightaway as they come by, coming up across the tunnel turn. As they come across turn 2, head for turn 3. Richmond the leader. From the top there, looking down on Terry Labonte running second. Benny Parsons third, and Bill Elliott fourth. Coming on to the front stretch, Eli.
You see the difference between your front 4 cars and 5th place Dale Earnhardt. SETN bringing you these pictures and coverage of the Miller High Life 500 from the Pocono International Raceway. Eli Gold with Jerry Punch and Jerry Gappens. Jam-packed. We have yet to hear the attendance figures. Oh, problems for Rusty Wallace. Problems for Rusty Wallace on the Kodiak Pontiac. He came off turn number 3, and the car, we get a report now, was not running. We understand the car was shut off as he came off the corner and is now coasting down pit road.
And we'll see if he makes that left-hand turn toward the garage or goes down to the pits, and he's moving slowly down pit road. And no, he will make the turn and say so long to Pocono. Rusty Wallace, 5th in the Winston Cup points, in trouble. That in turn 1.
That's Jim Bound. Jim Bound driving car number 12 here this weekend, the Roger Hamby machine. And Jim Bound brings out the caution flag from Harold Kinder, NASCAR's chief starter. You see Darrell Waltrip already down pit road. Bill Elliott making a move around Tim Richmond. Of course, if you're new to Winston Cup racing, when the caution flag comes out, you are allowed to race back to the start-finish line, and that is what we're seeing taking place here for those who have not yet gotten the caution. But Jim Bound brings out caution flag number 1.
And here's Bill Elliott. They will come by and he will take the yellow flag on pit road. They will make their way to the pits and hastily get their pit work underway. Here's Elliott coming to a stop. Butch Stevens and the crew, Dan Elliott, Ernie, and the rest of the crew. Bill Burkhalter going to change right side tires on the Coors Ford, the Melling Coors car. And there's the lead car, Tim Richmond's Folgers Coffee Chevrolet. And just behind him, another crew of Folgers people working on Benny Parsons' car.
There again is Bill Elliott. They're going to the left side now, so a 4-tire change. Getting all the fuel they need in that automobile. Everybody's going to take a look at exactly how the tire's faring. The 4-tire change for Tim Richmond as well. So while tire changes and fuel stops take place here under the first caution, we're going to break away for just a moment. There's lots more coming up as the Miller High Life 500 continues from Pocono International Raceway in just a moment. Set to go back to racing here at Pocono. You see Darrell Waltrip, the 17, on the inside lane. He is now a lap down, a costly pit stop. Jerry Gappens with the story.
Waddell Wilson, the crew chief for Darrell Waltrip. They say you came in too early. Do you agree with that, NASCAR?
Well, you know, we were down about 30 seconds, and Darrell made the decision to pit. He said, you know, I'm in, and he come on down pit road, and he wanted to change 4 tires, so that's what we done, and we didn't get out in front of the pace car, although it was a good pit stop.
You gonna be able to make it up? Fortunately, it came early in the race.
Well, we're not running well enough, I don't think, to make it up.
Okay, a costly stop for Darrell Waltrip early here in the Miller 500. Gentlemen.
A man of candor at all moments. Look at that 7-8 wide there going down the front stretch on the restart.
This early caution flag, a break for Joe Ruttman. You see him down the inside of the STP Petty car. In the Richard Petty car, Ruttman now catching up with the field. He will have a shot at moving up toward the front. And that's where we're looking right now with Dale Earnhardt showing the way, Eli.
You see Darrell Waltrip was already bypassed on the restart. He was not able to get back on the lead lap as the front 2 cars, now the front 3 in your picture with Tim Richmond trying to make an inside move on Bill Elliott. Over that tunnel, the tough turn, the car really out of kilter to some degree going across that tunnel turn. And the fact here at Pocono, as we've already told you, 3 turns, each one of a different radius, each one of a different banking. You basically have to pick one spot to set up for on this racetrack. Most set up for where you see the cars right now, turn 3. It is totally flat. It is the slowest part of the track, and you need to set up for this long front straightaway so everybody else kind of muscles their way around turns 1 and 2 and set up for turn number 3.
See Cale Yarborough bring the Hardee's colors to the inside there. Buddy Baker back in the pack to try to make a move. But then you got to fan back in single file to get down into turn 1. They say you get on the binders and break down to around 75 miles per hour. The slowest part of this 2.5-mile Pocono Raceway course.
Earnhardt leading Bill Elliott. That's your top 2 at the moment. You see the lush greenery of the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. Terry Labonte. Further back, you've got Dave Marcus, 71, Sterling Marlin in the 44, Bobby Hillin Jr. in the 8. The last guy in line there, Joe Ruttman. Joe is very honest, as you heard him tell Jerry Gappens earlier. This is not his best racetrack. Actually, statistically, this is Joe's poorest racetrack over the years. And actually, I said that was Bobby Hillin Jr. That's Derek Cope.
Yeah, Derek Cope in the car number 19 back in the pack, and you see him snaking their way down the front straightaway. That's the line made famous by Neil Bonnet back in 1980 when he won here in the Wood Brothers car. They move off of turn 3, go inside, outside, back. And speaking of the Wood Brothers car, there's a Citgo Ford for Kyle Petty.
He moves to the outside of Jeff Bodine, and now a bid for the lead. Bill Elliott trying to make an inside move on Dale Earnhardt on one of the long straightaways here at Pocono. Ford trying to keep it wound up. Earnhardt's not giving him any quarters at all. Little seesaw battle back and forth.
And Earnhardt will have to give way as they come over the tunnel turn there. Just come by the tunnel, and he will have the inside advantage. But Earnhardt makes a move back to the inside as they head for turn 3.
On this straightaway, the North Straight, if you will, some 1,700 feet worth of straightaway between turns 2 and 3, and Earnhardt has the lead. And how quickly things shuffle with Tim Richmond now in second, Bill Elliott back in third. There's Labonte in fourth, already beginning to catch some of the slower cars and those who are forced to make pit stops.
Boy, Tim Richmond not wanting to wait for any time, waste any time getting back toward the front. He laid off for 6 months, has not been aboard a race car, with the exception of the Winston, where he finished third. It's the same car he drove at Charlotte. They call it Gertrude. This Chevrolet he has here at Pocono, it's led every time it's been in competition, and he wants to get back to the front right now.
On the Long Pond straightaway, going around Bobby Gerhardt. He's sponsored by a local Pennsylvania-based auctioneer, J. Omar Landis. Gerhardt from right here, or actually just down the road a piece in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Here goes Tim Richmond. But Earnhardt's not going to give many orders, any room right there into turn number 3. Again, using the apron of the racetrack before they swing to the outside. And you see Earnhardt moving in. Richmond trying to follow with him, stay right there in the draft.
It seems Earnhardt is extremely strong getting through turn 3. It's an almost flat 6-degree bank turn, almost like a road course turn coming out of 3, headed up for that 7/10 of a mile straightaway. But Richmond's strength is out of turn 2, across the tunnel turn. Tim Richmond gets very well across the tunnel turn. We'll watch him now moving up through turn, up the short chute, the Long Pond straight, headed for turn 2. We'll see if Tim Richmond can make a move there.
Looks as though Tim's trying to set him up, moving to the inside. Tim Richmond goes right past Earnhardt. Trying to set him up, he just said so long.
Well, Richmond has got that car dialed in so well for the tunnel turn, but here comes where Earnhardt is strong, and we'll see if Earnhardt can make a move, but Richmond really showing some muscle down the short chute.
Pocono International Raceway over the years, known for a lot of lead changes, and evidently today's Miller High Life 500 will be no different. Off turn 3, can Earnhardt make the pass? Nothing there to the outside, and this battle is going to rage on, and our telecast rages on as soon as we come back with more from the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. Back at Pocono, Joe Ruttman pushing his way towards the top 10. Richard Petty is watching.
Richard Petty, an interested spectator here in the STP pit. How's it feel to be on this side of pit wall?
Not too good at all. I'm completely lost. Of course, a lot of times I'm lost on the racetrack, but I need to be on the racetrack. This is tough on me, I'll do.
Have you ever had to watch the STP number 43 when you're not in it?
No, not really. Sometimes when I had to get out because I was hurting or got fatigue or something, but most time then I didn't really care a whole lot about it. Right now, I'd like to get out there and see what's going on.
How's Joe doing for you?
So far, so good. We got a long way to go yet. We'll just have to wait and see. We just told him to, bring the car back, and he's doing a good job so far.
Okay, Richard Petty being more of a team manager and a team owner rather than a driver here at Pocono today. Gentlemen.
Hi, Jerry. Thank you. It's got to be an unusual feeling. There's Tim Richmond. I'm Eli Gold with Dr. Jerry Punch, and you've just heard from Jerry Gappens as Tim Richmond continues to work his way around this 2.5-mile layout, closing in on Trevor Boys, the Canadian driver in car 08. Ricky Rudd in the Motorcraft Ford Thunderbird to the left of your screen, then Benny Parsons. They're running well in the top 10. Still very early, 200 laps. Make up the 500 miles. There's Buddy Arrington of Martinsville, Virginia, and the panel knitting Ford Thunderbird. Good to see Buddy back.
Really is. Buddy has a pretty good finish here in the past at Pocono. He finished 7th one time. That's in a Ford this year, sponsored by Panel Knitting. And there's the car that got a lap down early. Darrell Waltrip, the 3-time Winston Cup champion in the Tide Chevrolet. He's following the Helen Ray efforts for Dave Marcus.
A couple of veterans. Bobby Allison making a pit stop. This would have to be, well, darn close to scheduled pit stops, but maybe not. They're right on that borderline here. The Miller American Buick for Bobby Allison. Let's see.
Well, Pat Broyles and Jimmy Finnig and the crew will go to work on that Miller car. They will change right side tires. Maybe a shad early, but possibly could be routine. They don't want to risk it here on fuel. Allison has run out of fuel here at Pocono in the past. He knows the feeling of coming to rest up in turn 3, totally dead on the asphalt. They will change 4 tires here for Allison's car, so I would not think this would be a scheduled pit stop under green for a 4-tire change.
And now we are getting word that Bobby had a tire equalize. We are told he had a tire equalize and that is the reason for the pit stop. What does that mean exactly? When the inner liner and the regular tire itself equalize in pressure?
That's exactly right. When the inner liner pressure equals the outside pressure in the tire, it will begin to flop and vibrate violently, shuddering the car on the track. You have to come in or it will shake the car apart.
Bill Elliott running well. Again, we are closing in on regularly scheduled pit stops within the next few laps, certainly for some. And you normally see a tendency for guys to make pit stops a bit earlier, at least on their first pit stop, the first green flag pit stop. Dale Earnhardt, he's running up in the top 3 or 4. Tim Richmond.
And here's Richmond peeling off down pit road. This will be a scheduled green flag stop for Tim Richmond as he will make that car his way to pit road, and Jerry Gappin is standing by.
Jerry Gappin's watching as the crew is getting set to wait for Tim.
And Tim Richmond, your leader, brings his car into the pit, stops it on a money. Immediately, the crew goes to work, fueling the car. Left side tires going on the car. The windshield being cleaned. He refuses a drink of water. Obviously, he's feeling pretty good in the car, guys. He didn't take any refreshment down off the jack. A great stop for the Folgers crew as Richmond speeds away.
Was a good stop.
15 seconds, a real good stop for that crew. They've been pitting the car for Benny Parsons all year long. Here is the current Winston Cup point leader, Dale Earnhardt.
Kirk Shelmerdine, Richard Childress, the rest of the crew going to work there. Right side change. The way they're running here, we are 60 laps into the event now, 150 miles. Labonte with the pit stops leading. Cale Yarborough is second. Kyle Petty third. Bobby Allison just prior to his stop was running fourth. Phil Parsons a good run. He's showing in fifth ahead of Neil Bonnet sixth. Bill Elliott seventh. Tim Richmond before his stop was running eighth, and Dale Earnhardt was ninth. 10th is Alan Kulwicki, and we have a problem there. Jimmy Horton. Jimmy Horton has just spun. We caught the aftermath, but it's going to bring out the caution flag here on lap 61. We are under caution here at Pocono.
And a tough break for Tim Richmond and Dale Earnhardt, some of the folks who just made green flag pit stops. Now here comes Terry Labonte. He will get to make his stop by virtue of the yellow. So Pete Wright, Jeff Hammond, and the crew will go to work on the Budweiser Chevrolet and change those right side tires. One crewman climbing and diving in that right side window. He will make a heavy duty chassis adjustment. He will pick that jack up, and Pete Wright will muscle it around the car, shove it beneath the left side, jack it up. You see Junior Johnson standing behind the wall surveying. You put that right leg up on the wall and said, okay, fellas, we've had enough time. Put those tires on, and let's get back on the track.
Of course, here making the stops under caution. You see everybody on pit road. Others, like Tim Richmond, made their stop under green. We'll talk about that when we come back to Pocono on the Miller 500. Welcoming Tim Richmond back to Winston Cup Racing. And we welcome you back to the Pocono International Raceway. Eli Gold with Jerry Punch and Jerry Gappins. Beautiful day, sun-drenched crowd. See very many of those having already shed their shirts. And we are set to go back. Ricky Rudd has inherited the lead now with Morgan Shepherd second. As we get the green from Harold Kinder. Everybody beginning to pick their way through traffic. Tim Richmond there, you see him in the middle of your screen. He has dropped back a bit. And continues to seemingly drop back. It looks as though he's running in about 12th position or so here on the start.
A couple of cars moving by on the inside of Richmond. That was Michael Waltrip, so he has fallen back in the field. But Ricky Rudd, having qualified back in 23rd spot, had a rough qualifying there. There's a picture of Ricky at 30 years of age out of Chesapeake, Virginia. Has never won here at Pocono. He had a photo finish last year in the Summer 500. Lost by a scant 3 inches to Tim Richmond.
Keeping our eyes on Tim Richmond. That car still sitting back at around 15th place. There he is now, just behind Harry Gant. So something was amiss there on the restart. We'll hope to get a word with his team manager, Harry Hyde. I was going to say crew chief, but actually Benny Parsons and Tim Richmond's teams with the different crew chiefs here this weekend.
Well, what they've done is Harry Hyde has become the overall team manager. Tommy Johnson will be the crew chief named for Benny Parsons. And Dennis Connor, a longtime close personal friend of Tim Richmond, will run that Folgers pit.
See Joe Ruttman there, the STP Pontiac, working his way back towards the point. Ricky Rudd leads. Bill Elliott there in second. Morgan Shepherd third. Jeff Bodine and Dale Earnhardt currently running in 7th and 8th spots respectively as they work the Long Pond straightaway over the tunnel turn. There you see are your front cars.
Well, Ricky Rudd the leader. There's Elliott running awfully strong. A pair of Fords up front here at Pocono. They're trying to pull away and settle among themselves.
Tim Richmond now has gotten himself back up to full song. You see him there. Tim is back now among the leaders. So whatever problem he had earlier was very much on the restart, and he has now worked himself back up into contention again. I don't know whether he might have missed a shift or something. We'll hope to find out shortly.
Well, it's hard to speculate, but as well as that car is running, you got to figure that maybe something like that happened. His car awfully strong. He has now been able to run down that lead twosome of Fords, and he's giving Bill Elliott all he can handle there for second spot.
Again, they work the apron of the racetrack through turn number 1. Actually, the left side tires often get out into the grass, and here goes Bill Elliott for the lead. Bill moves to the inside of Ricky Rudd. Let's see if Tim Richmond can take the free ride along. He will. Also moving inside of Ricky Rudd, heading towards turn number 2. Over the tunnel they go. And Bill Elliott has taken the lead here in Pocono with Tim Richmond second, Rudd third. There's Morgan Shepherd, a good run for the Quaker State Buick today.
There's Elliott, the leader. You got to remember, a year ago it was Shepherd who took a violent collision with the wall in turn 1 in the late stages of this Miller High Life 500 to send him to the hospital. He was unconscious for a while. He is coming back to hopefully lick this track and maybe get a victory.
That wide front straightaway as they put yet another lap on the board. You don't see that wavering back and forth on the front stretch that we saw earlier. Bill Elliott right now not so much concerned about breaking the draft behind everybody, or for those behind him. There's still plenty of racing time to go. Let's check in the pit area. Jerry Gappens.
Saw problems with Tim on that restart. What happened, Harry?
He missed a gear, and the engine went up and hit the rev limiter and cut out. But he recovered all right. He's okay.
The rev limiter, does that prevent engine damage?
Yeah. It went up again. That popped real loud. Sounded like it blowed up, but it didn't.
Tim say everything's okay, though?
Oh, yeah, he's wonderful. I wish the only problem that I had today was a problem with Tim. He hadn't got any problem.
But Mike Waltrip has a problem. Thank you, gentlemen. Michael Waltrip in the Dick Bear Earl Sadler racing machine, just spinning here in turn number 1. And this is going to bring out the caution. Michael Waltrip's car coming to a stop, and you see Harold Kinder pointing in the general direction of where the problem is as caution is being displayed to the field here in Pocono. So again, everybody is on pit road for routine service, and we're going to give you a chance to break away for routine service as well. We're coming back with more of SETN's coverage of the Miller High Life 500 as they shuffle the running order yet again. We're coming right back. We're back at Pocono getting set for another restart, but one man who won't be around for the restart was today's pole sitter. Terry Labonte is in the garage.
The pole sitter Terry Labonte out of the race. Terry, what happened?
Well, I don't really know. The thing started slowing down a little bit, and it just seized up on us.
Up to the point early in the race, you were really holding your own with the front runners. You were right up there mixing it up with Richmond and the leaders, and the car must have felt really good.
Well, the car was working good. We kept working with it, getting a little bit better, but, you know, that's the way it goes.
How are the track conditions out there right now? Kind of a sunny day, hot day. Is it getting slick?
It's a little bit slick. It's not bad.
Out of what you've seen out there on the track today, who's the guy to beat?
Well, it looks like it's either probably going to be Richmond or Elliott.
Well, we'll find out. It's you see the Oldsmobile safety car pulling off there on that short chute between turns 2 and 3. That's a new wrinkle here this weekend at Pocono. Better to keep the field in check as they come around for the green flag. Car 90, Ken Schrader, to the inside of Neil Bonnet, the Valvoline Pontiac leading the event. Neil's got a road racing transmission in his car here this weekend.
A little bit different philosophy, Eli. They're going to try to change gears. They'll be swapping gears. They'll be in third gear down most of the straightaway. At the end of the fencing, you'll go in the fourth gear at 170 miles an hour. Back in the second gear out of turn 1, up to third gear across the tunnel turn. He'll stay in third gear when he comes by the start-finish line once again.
A unique approach for the Poconos, but it's working as we're set to go back to green flag racing. And here comes Tim Richmond. Here's an unscheduled stop for Tim Richmond in the Folgers Coffee Chevrolet, car number 25. Let's see exactly what Harry Hyde and the crew will be doing here.
Well, Richmond not coming up to speed, so when the green flag came back out, so he makes the dash down pit road. They will put it on the jacks. Meanwhile, back up front, there's the charge right there by Earnhardt and Neil Bonnet, but up front right now is Bill Elliott in the car number 9.
Earnhardt working his way inside of the Valvoline Pontiac. Tim Richmond's car still on pit road. We'll keep an eyeball on that for you. There, your front 3 cars working the straightaway between turns 2 and 3. Bill Elliott, Dale Earnhardt, Neil Bonnet. Elliott is a factor here today. And there you see the team having to push Tim Richmond off pit road to get the car going. And still, Tim not coming up to speed. Jerry Gappin's making his way towards that pit area. All right, Jerry, go ahead. He's standing by with the team manager, Harry Hyde.
Harry, a little bit of problem on that last stop. He came in as the green came out. What happened?
We've been a shifting rod, I guess, and we've only got high gear. If we get a caution, we can fix it, but right now we got to go take the lead and get our lap back. We went a lap down, and it's a little problem, but we can live with it if we have to. We got high gear.
It's a problem as far as getting in and out of pits, but not so much on the racetrack at full speed, correct?
10-4, that's right.
Can you still win with that problem?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's word from Harry Hyde and Tim Richmond's pit, gentlemen.
Jerry, thank you. Ricky Rudd running well. He's back in the fourth position now between these front two cars. You see Elliott and Earnhardt, and now Ricky Rudd trying to make a bid, working his way through race traffic. Joe Ruttman right there, the STP Pontiac running well. And there's Tim Richmond finally back up to full song, but it was a costly pit stop. Right behind him is Ricky Rudd, and let's go to Ricky's pits right now.
Bud Moore, crew chief for Ricky Rudd. Ricky's really running pretty strong out there today, Bud. What's he saying about the car?
Well, we're a little bit worried just a minute ago. He thought maybe he had a tire going down, but I think maybe he might have threw a weight off. So everything going pretty good right now, so we'll know in just a few minutes.
Is he in good shape? Can he handle Elliott out there?
Yeah, the car's handling running right well right now.
Now we saw Tim Richmond there. He was getting himself back on the lead lap with that pass of Ricky Rudd.
Yeah, he's back in front of the leaders now. Richmond needs a caution flag, but here's an unscheduled stop for Brett Bodine, the young driver of the Bullseye Barbecue Chevrolet, and Hoss Ellington's crew will go beneath the hood on that car. That's their show car that they had a year ago, and they tore up their good race car at Dover last week, so they had to bring the show car out of retirement and race it here at Pocono.
Now for the moment, Bill Elliott again around Tim Richmond, so Tim is now back again a lap down. So that is going to shuffle obviously back and forth for the next short while. If Tim can get by Bill Elliott and hope for that caution flag that Jerry and I were talking about, he could get back and come around all the way around to catch the leaders. And for the moment he is there. But let's see if Bill Elliott will, he's certainly not going to give up on the challenge. Let's see who's the stronger car here going into turn number one. Looks like Tim Richmond will make the inside move, and say it's a gutsy piece of driving.
How many times do you see a car out horsepower Bill Elliott and that Ernie Elliott engine? Very rarely on this circuit do you see that happen, and Tim Richmond in the Randy Dorton prepared Folgers Coffee Chevrolet. Dorton, of course, the engine builder, has gone by Elliott and is now on the tail end of the lead lap.
So what Tim needs is a caution flag, which would allow him to come around. Meanwhile, Benny Parsons with his brother Phil right behind him. Benny Parsons in the wall in turn number one. Benny Parsons in the wall. They are going to put out the caution flag. Benny, as you see, comes off the banking. Buddy Arrington just does miss him there going by. Tim Richmond charging back around to the start-finish line, and he does manage to get himself back on the lead lap. He has been able to hold off the challenge from Bill Elliott, and that was the break Richmond was wanting. Let's see what happened here with Benny Parsons. His brother Phil was right behind him going through turn number one. The black and white car is Phil Parsons.
And we'll see Benny's car, the rear end, just starting to slide out from the lead. Does not seem to be any contact between he and Phil. Parsons trying to gather it back in. He has the car almost saved. The rear end comes back around. Now he's in the marbles. He skates up across that 14-degree banking and kaboom, ouch, into the concrete retaining wall. Heavy contact for the Folgers Chevrolet. Bobby Waywack's car goes beneath him, and Parsons' car will come to rest on the track apron.
You know, one thing we've been seeing here in turn number one, there is a chunk of asphalt that has been worn down, an area that was patched on the racetrack. And as the cars have been going over it all day today, that area has been coming up. A lot of the cars have been getting just a little bit loose going over that hole in the racetrack. We'll be right back. The Oldsmobile safety car back towards its perch between turns 2 and 3 as the Miller High Life 500 gets set to go back to green flag racing here at the Pocono International Raceway. We've not talked about young Davey Allison much today. Davey has been lingering back in the middle of the field much of the afternoon, but we documented yesterday that the car they had hoped to use here today was basically wrecked beyond repair in a practice accident.
So they are not prepared to run this car at Pocono, just making the best they can. They scatter out 6 and 7 wide down that first stretch as Harold Kinder unfurls the green flag, and they're scurrying down into turn 1. Rodney Combs there, the leader, of course, the car number 3, the Wrangler Chevrolet for Dale Earnhardt.
Bobby Hillin Jr. in car number 8. He is a lap down as Earnhardt goes past this time off turn number 1. Benny Parsons, while we were away on the break, was given a ride in the track ambulance towards the infield care center. We should have an update on Benny before much longer, but he did climb from the car under his own power. So at least first looks and first indications are that he's okay.
What a good run for Kyle Petty. This is the same car he won the World 600 in Charlotte 3 weeks ago. They nicknamed the car Spot because the car didn't make the field in a race last year. They had to use a provisional spot to get it in the field. They've nicknamed that car Spot. They petted on the nose like a pet puppy, but the car responded 3 weeks ago at Charlotte with the win, and they brought it here to Pocono hoping it would do the same here.
An old Spot trying to chase down the race leader, Dale Earnhardt. The margin seems to narrow coming off turn number 3 there, the flat turn.
We might mention, Eli, that this caution flag we just completed was a break for Richmond. He is back on the lead lap.
Jerry Gappens is now caught up with Benny Parsons outside of the care center. Jerry?
Benny Parsons just checked out of the medical center. Benny, what's the conditions? Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
I'm going to live.
Are you?
Yeah. They said I'm going to live.
Old men are hard to get rid of. Huh?
Yeah, that's what they said. And I feel all right. I hit the wall very hard, but you know, the car is a good race car, and it really didn't hit solid. It didn't hit the roll cage. It hit the rear, the sheet metal. It folded up, and it hit the front sheet metal, and it folded up, and so that took most of the blow.
What caused the accident?
Don't have any idea. I really don't. You know, maybe I'd be interested to see this show and see the video if they have it, exactly what happened. I don't know. I started down the first corner, and all of a sudden the back end went away. I don't really know what happened.
How are the track conditions right now? It's been sunny all day. Are they slick?
Well, at the track, there's a hole going in one right where the right sides needs to be, and that's really creating some problems.
That was the problem we were talking about earlier, and the fact that more cars have been lost in turn number 1 is a credit to how well these guys are getting around. It's been tough going for a few.
They're trying to tiptoe through turn 1 to miss that little chunk of asphalt that came up there, but there's Earnhardt, the leader, and Kyle Petty trying to hang tough some 6 or 7 car lengths back.
Tim Richmond moving inside of Bobby Hillin Jr. and Morgan Shepherd. Morgan's having a good run here today.
Well, Morgan coming on. They've had an up and down year in that car, the Quaker State Buick. He finished second at Charlotte, and then what a tremendous lick he took at Dover 2 weeks ago, and he was injured, taken to a care center. He thought he may have broken some ribs. That was not the case. He had bruised ribs and a bruised elbow and a bruised knee and a bruised ego, but he's back here at Pocono trying to recover and maybe get a victory.
From this view, you can see how close those cars come to the outside retaining wall, some more so than others, as they swing off turn 3.
There's Tim Richmond just pulling up on the Ricky Rudd machine. Now, Richmond showing back in the top 6. He's trying to move around Rudd, as there's the battle up in the pack. Ruttman, of course, in the Petty car. Morgan Shepherd we talked about, and a good run for the car number 9 of Bill Elliott.
Rudd and Richmond, no change in their positions on the racetrack. Again, if you're just joining us, Tim was down a lap earlier, managed to get it back after repeated visits to pit road. A problem with the shifter.
Yeah, they had a shifter linkage problem and couldn't get the car in gear. They had only 4th gear, so he was at somewhat of a disadvantage on the restarts. They now have that corrected, and he is running back at full song. But there's the leader, Dale Earnhardt, continuing to pull away somewhat from Kyle Petty, putting about a 15 car length separation between himself and the Wood Brothers Ford.
Kyle Petty still trying to close in. Can't quite do so. There's an ongoing Tim Richmond battle between himself and Rudd, and Tim's been making that move all day long, just beating the other car to the inside groove, going into turn number 1 to make the pass.
You give Richmond a few inches, he will stick the nose of that Folgers car in there. In trouble in turn 1. That engine has come unglued on the Quaker State Buick, and hopefully we have not jinxed Morgan Shepherd. We're just talking about the up and down year he's had, and now it comes up in smoke.
And the leader, Dale Earnhardt, takes advantage of the yellow flag, comes in for the stop. The cool drink of water goes into the cockpit area while the Wrangler crew goes to work on the car. First, right side tires will be taken off and fresh ones put on. And the same thing will happen on the left side now as the jack man brings it around. He'll jack up the left side of car number 3. The crew, one of the fastest in the business, doing a fine job. They're not under as much pressure under the yellow flag situation, so they took advantage of the shelf to change all 4 tires, put a full load of fuel, and again, still getting back out in front of the competition. Back upstairs to you.
That's an ailing Wrangler crew, Jerry. They had sunburn, second-degree burns from a 4-hour raft trip this week, and Danny Myers, David Smith, and Kirk Shelmerdine suffering there in the pits. From Pocono, we'll be right back.
Well, 9, Elliott, plus 5, Bodine equals Earnhardt busters, I guess. The way that pennant read.
Apparently not Earnhardt fans, but Earnhardt certainly putting that car up front right now as we're going back to green. It's Earnhardt, and look who's right there behind him, Eli.
Tim Richmond right there on the green flag from Harold Kinder, back underway. And Tim is not going to let Earnhardt get away this time. Dale is normally awfully quick through the gearbox, and look, Tim trying to peel off to that inside move again, but this time Earnhardt stays right with him.
Earnhardt slams the door there. Remember, Richmond awfully strong through turn 2, the tunnel turn, but Kyle Petty hanging tough. I think Kyle will sit there and watch those two guys fight it out as Richmond will try to make a move coming up on turn 2.
Tim makes a move inside, passing Dale Earnhardt. Holding onto the lead now is Tim Richmond. So Tim is back in front here in the Miller 500. Joe Ruttman running in 5th spot. He has moved back up through race traffic. Far and away the best run for Joe in his career here at the Pocono Raceway.
Richmond really showing the muscle in the Folgers Chevrolet, pulling a couple of 3 car lengths, and here is where Earnhardt is stout, coming through turn 3, that flat 6-degree banking down the front stretch. He heads it out, and there's Ruttman flashing by in the STP Pontiac.
Let's take you a little bit further back. Tim Richmond the leader, Dale Earnhardt second, Kyle Petty is third. Fourth is Ricky Rudd, Richard Petty's car with Joe Ruttman driving is fifth, Bill Elliott sixth, Jeff Bodine seventh, Bobby Allison is eighth. Ninth is K.O. Yarborough, and Phil Parsons currently running in 10th spot. Average speed at the moment 122.626 miles an hour.
There's Kyle Petty in the Citgo Ford. I don't think anyone expected Richmond to be this strong. I expected his comeback to be a little bit slower. He got in the car for the Winston at Charlotte a few weeks ago, ran those 3 segments, 135 laps total, was quite exhausted after that short stint, that sprint race. He felt maybe he couldn't make it all day, or maybe it'd be a tough day for him at Pocono. That's not the case so far. He's running awfully well. There's a battle back in the pack with Jeff Bodine, Richmond's teammate.
That's 7th and 8th place right there. Sterling Marlin's car right behind car 44. He's showing a lap in arrears at this juncture. He's a lap down to the race leaders. Darrell Waltrip, that bright orange day glow colored Tide machine, just flashing by. Darrell went down a lap early in the event with an untimely caution and pit stop. Let's go down to the pit area. Jerry Gappens.
You got to be real happy to see what Tim's doing out there on the track. Does his performance surprise you a little bit this quick back?
Tim's a Charger, and you know, he picked up where he left off in Charlotte. Hopefully, you know, the car will last all day for him here, and he's just a born race car driver. And you get him in the car, and he just some special substance, that energy just takes over, and he's a great driver, and we love him, and we're just glad to have him back.
He's doing an awfully fine job, isn't he?
I tell you, Rick Hendrick has a lot of respect for these young drivers. All of his drivers, Darrell Waltrip, Benny Parsons, Jeff Bodine, you see there making a move inside the lap car of Bobby Hillen. But Tim Richmond in particular, he says Richmond can make up for if the car isn't handling and the motor isn't running. Richmond says, I'll just drive that much harder and I'll push the car up front. That's what he's doing right now.
Can drive a whole lot harder than he is right now. That lead is fairly comfortable in light of what we've seen today, some 6 car lengths. There you see Ricky Rudd, Joe Ruttman in car number 43. What a good run Joe is having as he screams down the front straightaway, heading towards turn number 1 yet again. And there's problem on Ruttman's car. Problem for Joe Ruttman. Oh, a hard hit into the wall in turn number 1. You heard the screeching of the tires. Joe Ruttman shortening up that Richard Petty Pontiac from the rear back. There is very little rear of that automobile remaining. Joe Ruttman, a vicious hit into the wall. Debris all across the racetrack. We're under caution. Let's go to pit stops.
Tim Richmond comes in for what will be his final stop. The crew goes to work on the car. Right side rubber will be applied. Full load of fuel will go on. This will get him to the checkered flag. The windshield being cleaned off. He's taking a drink of water to get him through the final 30 laps of this event. Left side tires now will be applied. And that's a key move here, because if Earnhardt doesn't take on left side tires, he can beat him back out. But Richmond's going to feel better with 4 new tires as his Folgers machine down off the jack. He's back out. And there's Earnhardt. What a jam going out of the pits. And it looks like Richmond wins the battle out.
For Dennis Conner, the new crew chief for that Folgers crew, as they are able to beat Earnhardt down pit road, and Richard Petty heads back for the garage to survey the remains of the STP Pontiac.
Don't go away. We're coming back with more from the Pocono International Raceway and the Miller 500.
Harry, you had a tough decision there whether to come in or stay out, and you stayed out. How come?
Well, we're looking at the competition, really, and they didn't come in, so we're not coming in. We got to worry about Earnhardt and Elliott, and if they'd come in, we would need to come in. But it looks like it's going to be 5 laps to go when the green falls, so we're going to gamble it and stay out there. There's 11 cars in the lead lap, and they've got to go behind. They got to come 11 positions to get us.
That's the story from Harry Hyde in Tim Richmond's pit. Back upstairs to you, gentlemen.
All right, Jerry, now a couple of cars have just gotten together in turn 1, putting down some debris on the racetrack. That's the reason for this particular caution here. And nobody is pitted. None of the lead cars. You just saw the top 5. Richmond, Elliott, Kyle Petty, Cale Yarborough, and Dale Earnhardt. The other 6 cars in the lead lap: Bobby Allison, Ricky Rudd, Neil Bonnet, Jeff Bodine, Buddy Baker, and Phil Parsons. The only thing is, Jerry, a lot of those cars went through some of that debris on the racetrack. You wonder whether that's going to have any effect here, whether they might have a tire going down or something.
Well, one guy that's going down right now is Dale Earnhardt. He's going down to 3rd spot from 2nd as Elliott makes a move up the Long Pond straightaway toward turn 2.
Like Harry Hyde said, once one guy does or does not do something in a situation like this with 5 laps to go, pretty well dictates what everybody else has to do.
And Earnhardt apparently having some troubles as Kyle Petty now begins to work him over, headed for turn 3. So maybe your speculation could be correct. Earnhardt may be having a little bit of trouble, maybe just coming up to speed, but his car doesn't seem to be handling. It's slipping and sliding on the bottom of the track there, coming through 3 as Richmond leads. Then comes Elliott, Earnhardt, and then Kyle Petty.
Ricky Rudd, his car moving up to the 5th position now. We start to see again the leaders snaking their way down this long, wide front straightaway here at Pocono. Again, trying to break the draft on those cars behind them, and now it's so very critical. Tim Richmond still showing the way. Now Earnhardt being passed by Kyle Petty fairly effortlessly.
Earnhardt has got to be having a problem on the car. The car really hanging out coming out of turn 1. There's Elliott now trying desperately to reel in the leader. That's Tim Richmond, the car you're looking at right there. Richmond in the Folgers Coffee Chevrolet, hoping to make the comeback complete. His first venture back in the Winston Cup competition here at Pocono. He won both events a year ago. What a storybook finish this would be. There's a battle back in the pack as Earnhardt now slipping back behind Ricky Rudd's Motorcraft Ford out of turn 2.
Going to be a good battle because Earnhardt's not going to sit still and watch. He's got Bobby Allison there as well, car 22. Cale Yarborough and the orange and white Hardee's machine, the Oldsmobile, just ahead there. So that battle is anything but over, but it's all the while now. Bill Elliott looks as though he's closing in just a bit more on Tim Richmond going into turn 1. About 8 car lengths or so. Maybe not even that many now, down to about 4 or 5 car lengths. Richmond in the 25, Bill Elliott in car 9.
Elliott seems to really get off of turn 1 and try to reel in the car of Richmond. There's Bobby Allison moving up inside of the car number 15. Allison, that's a battle for 6th spot as Earnhardt momentarily has stopped his backsliding in the field. But there's Richmond, the fellow who would like to go on to victory. 32 years of age. Tim Richmond leading Bill Elliott by 8 car lengths, headed for 3.
What a story this would be if Tim Richmond comes back to pick up a victory. For those of you who may not follow Winston Cup racing as closely as others do, Tim just a few months ago was lying near death with a very severe case of double pneumonia. He came back to run in the Winston. That is NASCAR's all-star race, which was run back on May the 17th at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. But that was an event kind of tailor-made for Richmond or for anybody coming back after a long layoff. It was a race run in 3 distinct segments with 10-minute intermissions between each of those segments. Well, this is the first time since the illness and since the end of last racing season that Tim has gone a full 500 miles. There's Cale Yarborough running well.
Well, Cale Yarborough having a pretty good run today. He likewise being shown in the lead lap, showing currently in 4th spot. There's Elliott, the 2nd place car. Bill Elliott, a 2-time winner at Pocono, won both events in '85 and the Coors Ford. This is the car that Elliott ran in the Winston at Charlotte, the car that was running up front where Richmond finished 3rd, and of course the fellow who won the Winston was Dale Earnhardt.
It'll be white flag next time by. When they come across the stripe, Harold Kinder will show them the white flag, which means there'll be 1 more lap remaining. There's the flag, final lap. This is the 200th revolution of this triangular-shaped racetrack, and right now the battle seems to be further back as well.
You get a look at that 170-mile-per-hour conga line down that front straightaway at 0.7 of a mile. Richmond leads the way. Elliott has less than 2 miles to try to reel him in, but it's Tim Richmond by 7 car lengths.
Further back, Kyle Petty is still in third. Cale Yarborough fourth. The battle behind that, Earnhardt, Bobby Allison, and Ricky Rudd in that order. There's Elliott. And there you see the difference as they work the short chute, heading across the tunnel towards turn number 3.
Tim Richmond's got to be grabbing that steering wheel. White knuckle has the foot planted firmly on the floorboard, holding it wide open. There's a look at Richmond, 32 years of age. Could the comeback be complete, Eli? Could he take a checkered flag and win it? What a tearful celebration that's going to be. Richmond less than a half a mile from victory.
If he wins, it would be the 3rd straight victory for him here at Pocono. The crowd waving Richmond with the hand out of the window. And Tim Richmond has picked up the victory in the Miller High Life 500 here at Pocono. Bill Elliott is second, Kyle Petty third, Cale Yarborough is fourth. Let's see Earnhardt now across the line to finish 5th ahead of Bobby Allison and Ricky Rudd. We'll take you further back in the running order in just a bit, but what a day for Tim Richmond as Bill Elliott draws alongside with a polite little wave.
I think Elliott has got to be waving to congratulate Tim Richmond. They all realize, all his fellow competitors. Richmond waving to a celebrating crowd. It's got to be a popular win, not only among the competitors. There's Kyle Petty coming by to signal his approval for Richmond's victory. Kyle said, if I couldn't win it, I'm glad you could, because I'm happy for you, Tim. Cale Yarborough likewise moving by Tim Richmond.
We'll take you to victory lane and a chat with the winner next. Well, Tim Richmond picking up the victory here at the Pocono International Raceway, and I guess anything you can say is somewhat superficial here, Jerry, what it means to that man individually, and it's a headlining story for the sport here. Tim Richmond getting back to victory lane.
Well, Tim took an extra lap around the track, I think probably just to dry the tears. An emotional win there. You see the Folgers crew crowded around victory lane. His mother, Evelyn, there. Richmond the winner. Elliott finishing second. Kyle Petty third. Cale Yarborough fourth. And Dale Earnhardt finishing 5th.
Further back, Bobby Allison, Ricky Rudd, Neil Bonnet, Jeff Bodine, and Buddy Baker, a good run. The other car in the lead lap, by the way, Phil Parsons, he came home in 11th spot. Let's go to victory lane. Jerry Gappens is with Tim Richmond. Fellas?
A very happy Tim Richmond with a Cinderella story and a Cinderella ending, Tim, and you have to be happy with what happened there. Did you ever really think that this could be possible with everything that's happened?
Well, yeah, I did. You know, feel a need for speed, huh? Thanks, Harry. Yeah, I really did. You know, when you've got this good equipment sitting under you, you know, that layoff, it was devastating, but, you know, I didn't lose any. I thought about it every day, what I would do when I come back. So I wasn't that I forgot how to drive a race car. It was just that I'd take my time in a few turns in the road there to make sure I was doing the right thing. And then when it was all back to me. Somebody asked me on the way to the car what I felt about a win today, and I told them it was 100% I felt.
No victory ever comes easy, Tim, and especially for your Folgers crew today. You had the shift linkage problem. Did you really think that the chance of victory gone with that problem?
No, not really. You know, I held, you know, we've been laps down, and Earnhardt's been laps down, and we both made them up, and we both won, and I really felt that, you know, if we just given the right circumstances with the cautions and stuff, we could make the one lap that we lost up, and they could win, or they could fix that thing, and we could go ahead and beat somebody. So I didn't give up at all.
How about that crew? They really worked hard with servicing both Benny and yourself in the early part of the race, and they were running back and forth, and they got the problem fixed and got you back out, and that had to make you feel good that they were really working that hard for you today. Oh,
of course, you know, and I knew they'd be working that hard, you know, no matter what, and because they knew I'd be working that hard, and I just started to see Benny have a problem, whatever it was that crashed him down there in one. I just hope he's all right. They said he was, but that was a pretty nasty crash it looked like he took.
Came back out, you ran to Winston, and you're back into Winston for next year already, and a lot of guys have been learning a lot of races to do that.
Yeah, well, it's nice to, you know, it's nice to be wanted, and it's nice to be back in there. And I want to say hi to everybody in Deerfield at the Rib and Paradise 66. Hey, come on.
And Harry Hyde, the crew chief, comes in and gives him a big hug. The Miller beer being poured over Harry Hyde. A big smile. The relationship's very good. And Harry, you got to be happy with what happened.
Oh, ain't no way to explain it. There ain't no way to explain it. We're just happy he's back, and what a hell of a job.
This your boy?
Well, he drove from the rear 3 times, got his lap back, and you've seen the performance. You saw it. What else is there to say?
A happy crew in victory lane with the Folgers crew, Harry Hyde and Tim Richmond. Back upstairs to you, fellas.
How about it, man?
Richmond takes the Miller High Life 500. The first of 3 events coming up, the Summer 500, the next Winston Cup event, and on August 16th, the Quaker State 500 for the CART PPG Indy cars, Eli.
It's quite a weekend here in Pocono, and SETN congratulates Tim Richmond on his successful return to the Winston Cup Series, winning the Miller High Life 500. The executive producer of SETN Sports is Jim Wigglesworth. Today's coverage of the Miller High Life 500 produced by John R. Lewis. We've already given you the top 11 finishers. 12th was Davey Allison, Darrell Waltrip 13th, Bobby Hillen Jr. 14th, and Sterling Milan 15th. In the Winston Cup point chase, Bill Elliott gains 25 points on Dale Earnhardt, who continues to lead. Neil Bonnet is now 3rd, with Kyle Petty 4th and Terry Labonte 5th. Our SETN cameras and microphones will be right back here at Pocono for their running of the Summer 500. That's our next coverage of NASCAR Winston Cup racing. Plus, later this year, coverage from Richmond, Virginia, Martinsville, Virginia. More from the Busch Grand National Series and the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour. And added to our coverage schedule this year, the International Motorsports Association, IMSA, and the Camel GT Series from Summit Point, West Virginia, Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and Watkins Glen, New York, plus 12 IMSA events next year. And remember, for coverage of racing news from across Canada, the United States, and around the world, join SETN each week for This Week in Motorsports, hosted by Pat Scanlon. For Jerry Punch and Jerry Gappens, I'm Eli Gold. Thanks for joining us, and congratulations to Tim Richmond.